With Iowa in the books, we turn our attention to New Hampshire. Brian and I are here to preview the week ahead, as well as talk about what we liked about Iowa, what went well, what went not so well on the betting card, at DraftKings, and all that good stuff. All that and more on today's Angle of Pursuit podcast.
Ross Chastain used the wall all the way around this racetrack.
Logano has been the class of the field.
Check out the big brain on grass.
Yeah, I need to change my underwear.
Brian Twining, Iowa's in the books. The cars left the cornfield and they're heading towards the ocean. A track you will also be a part of. So if
I will.
You are in New Hampshire this weekend and you are attending the race, make sure you look out for Brian. Hit him up on Twitter. I'm sure he'll happily take a beer or something from you. What was your thought of the Iowa race? Obviously, the first time NASCAR's been here kind of in general since 2019, and interesting to see the Cup cars there. What was your kind of general takeaway? Did you enjoy it? Do you want to see it on the schedule? All that good stuff.
Yeah, I actually thought the race was really good. I mean, after the race, you heard a couple of drivers, in particular, Denny Hamlin on his show earlier this week. I mean, we're recording this on Tuesday, so I believe yesterday on Monday, he talked about how the lap times kind of flattened out as they got later into the run. And so there wasn't as much fall off as maybe he had anticipated. But I think you definitely saw comers and goers. You saw cars able to pass. You saw guys diving it in deep. You saw Kyle Larson being extremely aggressive on restarts, knowing he had the fastest car on track, just trying to get back up front and seemingly ruining his own race and Denny's for that matter at the same time. But yeah, I thought the racing was really good. I'm excited to see it on the schedule again, assuming it is, because especially, something I've learned over the couple of years doing this is that once a track is repaved, it takes a couple of years for it to get seasoned in. And then once that happens, then the racing really improves. And that's kind of the rhetoric we heard out of the garage, is that guys are really excited about the potential of Iowa if they go ahead and repave the entire thing, and then seeing how it ages over the time.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the race. I thought it made for some fun watching. Someone with a lot of Kyle Larson exposure, I'm very disappointed with Daniel Suarez.
My first reaction was that was Suarez, because he was a lane higher than he should have been on the inside. That said, Kyle Larson squeezed his car into a spot just big enough to squeeze his car into, and knowing that Suarez was already higher than he should have been into the corner, he should have known that there was only bad things about to happen. Yeah. To me, that was on Larson being impatient, very similar to what we saw with Tyler Reddick last week at Sonoma, where there's so much of the race left. Just cede that position for that time being, get him on the next corner. You don't have to push it with 190 laps remaining.
There was room. Suarez made a move for no reason. I will die on this hill. We can agree to disagree. It's Chastain last week, Larson this week. We'll see who it is next week. I agree that
there was room. Like, don't get me wrong. There was definitely room to do it, but I think Suarez probably intentionally stayed off the bottom, basically telling Kyle Larson, like, look, you're going to be putting yourself in a bad position if you try to squeeze it in here, because I'm already squeezing the guy who's on the high line up higher than he wants to be. And that's exactly what happened. Larson cut in between him. Keselowski had to kind of back out a little bit. Suarez got squiggly underneath him. And then Larson went for a ride and ruined his day.
Yeah. Frustrating end to a day that I thought I had the winner pegged, and obviously had a lot of him in DraftKings and all that stuff. Yeah. So let's look at the DraftKings results. Let's look at our betting results. Let's talk about some more of the race as we kind of go through it. So I will bring up my screen. First lineup, Hamlin, Truex, Reddick. My Alex Bowman call might be the call of the century. Obviously, 50% of the DraftKings field in this tournament was on him, but
yeah,
dude was awesome.
He was really good.
He was a top 10 car. I had him on the betting card as a top 10 car. I was pretty happy with that. Gragson was a little underwhelming. iFantasy races, Ryan was pointing out, about kind of his average speed ranking of late and how he's been kind of going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
5 straight races now, he's had a speed ranking in the 20s. In the 5 of 6 races prior, he was 14th or better. So I don't know if he's just not pushing it as hard or is not as comfortable or what's going on, but um, it was a little frustrating. He was fine, but like I thought he'd be closer to a top 10 car, obviously.
Yeah.
Especially with Larson out of the picture, Truex out of the picture, Reddick out of the picture. I thought maybe there was room for someone to jump in there, and even Denny wasn't there. Like there
I
was,
will say though, I will say this probably doesn't apply to a guy like Noah Gragson, but I think it does apply to a guy like Reddick or maybe even Martin Truex Jr., who really wasn't that good, but
yeah,
I believe it was Reddick, Austin Dillon. I think Truex was part of this group. They all got stuck a lap down when we got towards the end of stage 2. I believe it was when Ross Chastain decided to stay out and not pit, and we only had, I believe, it was 18 cars on the lead lap to end that stage, which
yeah,
forced guys like Reddick and Truex to have to take the wave around and not pit with everybody else. So, kudos to Truex to still be able to manufacture a 15th place finish, and Reddick for, thank the Lord, finishing ahead of Ty Gibbs, who really struggled on the day. Thank goodness, by the
yeah,
way, because I faded the shit out of him in matchups. But yeah, so I think Reddick's day was ruined by that. I definitely think he was better than a 22nd place car. He was probably more top 13 or 12 or so. But yeah, so that kind of played out. But the front runners were apparent early, and yeah, Bowman, had he had better track position early on in the race, I think he would have been a contender for a top 5. But yeah, Gragson struggled. Allmendinger, colleagues sucked. And then Denny Hamlin, I think Denny's got to be the biggest disappointment of the weekend.
yeah, yeah. At a track where he should have been good. Next lineup, Larson. I convinced he would have won the race if he stayed on the
Yeah.
track. Reddick, Chastain was pretty solid. Bowman, Bubba Wallace. Shouts to Bubba just finishing in front of Austin Cindric. That's all I needed, baby.
Thank
And
goodness.
you and Full Tank Phil talking about on the NASCAR betting preview show was pretty good. And then Richard Stenhouse Jr. steals a top 5.
Yep, he was one of the guys. He pulled the RFK team strategy where they stayed out long and they got the caution. The same caution that ruined the race essentially for Tyler Reddick and friends was the one that helped Ricky Stenhouse sneak up inside the top 10 and stay there pretty much the rest of the day.
Yeah, I was impressed with his ability to keep it there. Like I thought for sure he would fade away as soon as the race started, and he was able to maintain track position. So shouts to him. That was really impressive.
Yeah, I
Um,
also think too, like, because I believe he was one of the guys who only took 2 tires on a stop.
mhm.
Him and then Ryan Blaney did it on the last stop, and he went like 90 laps on just 2 tires. So clearly, they got some things to work on. But again, as the track ages a little bit more with that new repaved, and maybe they repave the whole thing, we'll get a little bit different racing. So yeah, again, strategy won out in the end here.
Yeah, and I think not being afraid of the fall off, being a little, a little more aggressive, ended up paying off for a few drivers. Which I think a lot of people were worried that there was going to be a lot of fall off, especially after what we saw in Xfinity. But it was good to see. Shouts to Chris Bell. I thought he was donezo pretty early, and
Yeah.
he was able to finish 4th in the race. I think if that race goes longer, he might be a contender. He looked really good at the end. I think he figured some stuff out and was reminding us why he was priced the way he was prior to practice and qualifying. As you mentioned with Gibbs, he was just he was a squirrel messing around the back.
All day.
Chase Elliott, another top 5 finish. This dude's just racking them up. Um, Solid run from him. He was really, really good all day. Chase Briscoe, wrong SHR car. Josh Berry was clearly the best option. And Wormy talked about it in the previous poll about, Berry he gets smarter as the race goes along. He gets better. He figures stuff out. And shouts to him. He was awesome. He was able to kind of keep it up there most of the day and, be
Well, I
really
think
good.
it also benefits Josh Berry that he has a championship winning crew chief in Rodney Childers
It doesn't
helping
hurt. Sure,
call
certainly
races.
doesn't
So,
hurt.
like of that camp, he definitely has a leg up.
Yeah. McDowell up and down day. I thought he was going to make some noise there for a little while, and then he kind of faded back.
Well, he suffered a right
Yeah,
front flat, which ruined his day because he was potentially a top 10 car.
yeah. And then I built this on Sunday morning. Justin Haley, once again,
Justin
this
Haley, man.
borderline top 10 car most weeks. Doesn't matter the track. He's taking that Rick Ware racing car and making some serious noise with it. Shouts to him. I hope he gets some consideration to potentially jump forward into a bigger team if openings, kind of become available. Maybe not this year, maybe a year or 2 or 3. But I think he's proving himself as somebody who can do a lot with a little. So shouts to him and continuing to impress. It's really been a interesting narrative with him, given what we saw, what we thought we were going to get coming into the season versus what we've actually been getting, especially the past month or so.
Yeah, and I will say with that Rick Ware team, you almost wish that they would just punt on the second car and
Yeah,
just go like the JTG Doherty
yeah,
route and just go a single car team, put all of their assets into Haley's, success because he's clearly a good driver.
yep,
And when he's taking subpar equipment to these top 20 finishes, routinely running inside the top 15 at tracks that it's not expected, like it just shows his talent behind the wheel. And somebody, if he does find a ride in a bigger team, I mean, watch out. Maybe he's a contender to make the playoffs.
yep, yeah. I think that's a great point. Let's look at the bet tracker. Decent week. I went big on Kyle Larson on post qualifying. I thought he was going to get there. I went Chase Briscoe instead of Josh Berry. That was stupid. The Bowman top 10 felt good. The Chase Elliott top 5 felt good. I never really felt like Chase was a contender for the win. I felt like he was kind of that second tier, somewhere between 3 and 6 or 7. Is that kind of where you were with him?
Yeah, like I thought there was a time where had he been able to get to Blaney and Byron and
Yeah.
make the pass, maybe he's able to stay out front because I do think they're again, we run into this issue every single week. Getting to the leader and passing them are two completely different
Yeah.
things. And especially when you're dealing with lap traffic. So, I think just as a whole, he was probably more of like a top 5 guy on the back end, like you said, a 3 to 5, 3 to 6 place finisher. But yeah, and real quick, got to give kudos to Ryan Blaney. Nobody talked about him during the week. Nobody considered him.
Wormy said he was going to have tire issues and he was going
Yeah,
to wreck.
and then he goes, "Yeah, he's probably going to go out and win." And sure enough, the son of a bitch
He was
goes out.
awesome all day too. It wasn't
Yeah.
like a luck box thing. It wasn't. And after, what was it, 2 weeks ago when he had the issue, or was it last?
Yeah, I think it was 2 races ago where he ran out of fuel. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So he was, yeah, because that was the Cindric win, and then we had Sonoma. So
Yeah.
yeah, shouts to him for bouncing back and finding a way to get to victory lane. And
The one thing that popped into my mind though was, we saw this out of Chris Buescher last year around the same time of year where, he starts to really come on strong. They're showing speed. And then we get to the playoffs and you go back and you look at the races where they were strong at, and there's really no correlation between those tracks and what we see in the playoffs. So part of me is still a little weary of getting too excited because until we start seeing this at 1.5s and the tracks that we see in the playoffs, I'm not going to start claiming Ryan Blaney as a potential back-to-back championship winner.
I will say he has been strong at shorter, flatter this year, and if he gets to Phoenix with a chance to in the Final Four, I think because he was 5th in speed rankings at Phoenix, he was 3rd at Gateway, he was obviously 1st at Iowa, stunk at Richmond, I don't want to say stunk, he was just 15th. So, but he's 2nd best average speed ranking over those 4 races this year. So, but yeah, he needs to show up at the 1.5 miles. He needs to be good at Talladega. He needs to do his normal things and prove that, he's not just like picking up some wins in the middle of the schedule, like Chris Buescher did. You had a pretty good week. You had some nice head-to-heads that came home to roost. Elliott over Chastain, Reddick over Gibbs, as you mentioned, squeezed that one out. Keselowski top 10 really squeezed that one out.
Oh man, I was sweating bullets about that one.
And then Truex over Gibbs. So that was smart. I was tempted to look at Truex for some matchups. At first, I was like, oh, I'm glad I missed out, and then I was like, well, maybe those would have hit. Interesting week. So,
Yeah.
I lost like a quarter of a unit, half a unit. You made up a few units, so
Yeah,
nice
I think
work
I
by
made like
you.
8 units on
Yeah.
the week. Yeah,
So
six and a third.
yeah. So overall, strong week. We got another shorter, flatter track that we need to dive into this week. So anything on Iowa before we head to New Hampshire and talk the USA Today 301, which
Yeah, right.
apparently USA Today isn't as hungry for money as we thought. I don't know.
Hey, maybe they're making enough money on the amount of images that me and Betsperts use to that we source for our
They've
articles,
just
but
become like a photo editor or a photo
yeah, yeah, they're
librarian.
they're a photo provider for
Yeah.
online content. No, as far as Iowa, just closing out the weekend there with the Cornhusks. It was sad to see that Mark Harris, Skybox NASCAR, I don't think ever got his corn cans. Poor
No.
guy. But it's in terms of the racing, I'm excited for the next time we come here in the Cup Series, because I think that drivers will be a little more cautious with the setups, because they were talking about it during the race, the camber and all that stuff was really affecting the blowouts of the tires. And once that's set, you can't make an adjustment to that in race. So,
Yeah.
I'm excited to see the way the teams adjust to that if we come back here next year. So yeah, I'm excited for the race in the future. I loved the race this past weekend, and it definitely holds true. You saw a lot of people. Iowa was actually better than Phoenix. So we'll see.
Would you be open to the idea of Iowa replacing a Richmond, a Phoenix, maybe Gateway, like one of the other shorter, flatter tracks? As
I think definitely a Richmond. I'm starting to get a little more comfortable with the idea of most tracks only having one race weekend. I think because it does make sense in terms of garnering the attention in that specific area to that track for that weekend. Obviously, I'm a little biased. I hope Vegas maintains 2 races because it's close to me. I love going there. It's fantastic. And then everybody could talk about Phoenix all they want, but having been there this past spring, like my first time going there, the way that city sets up for the race, and this was just a regular season event, like that whole area of Avondale and South Phoenix, Glendale, whatever the hell you want to call it, you can tell that they enjoy these race weekends, and that's going to be more appealing to the sport than it is at a place that maybe provides better racing on television, but it's about ticket sales.
yeah, and also for us West Coasters, there's not a ton of options.
Exactly.
And with weather in Phoenix and in Vegas, it's really hard to, early spring and late fall in
Yeah.
places like Florida in the upper East Coast, like it's hard to race there. So that's why Phoenix and Vegas makes so much sense for NASCAR, not only for getting the cars, out there and for people coming to the race and all that good stuff. So yeah, I would like to see it on the schedule. I think, yeah, maybe even if it's just like Richmond 1 and then Iowa takes over Richmond 2, that'd be
Yeah,
really
exactly.
cool. But we'll see how that goes. So let's shift forward. Let's talk New Hampshire. Let's pull up future bets. There we go. In the immortal words of CJ from Grand Theft Auto, aw shit, here we go again. Christopher Bell, short favorite. He's actually him and Truex are the same here over
Truex
on.
is taking on money for sure.
Yeah, it seems like Marty is
Yeah.
already getting money. So this is very much a JGR weekend. After last week was Hendrick, Bell, Truex, Hamlin, then Kyle Larson, 7-1 as long as 7-1 maybe, or did he go to 650 here too? Let's see. No, he's still 7. So We got to ask ourselves the question: are we going to do it again? Ryan Blaney after last week, Joey Logano round out the inside 10-1. I guess let's start with JGR. Bell, Truex, Hamlin, all very popular, all very shortly priced. Obviously, this early in the week, it's hard to get to them. And we saw last week what happened when people didn't want to line up for Bell. All of a sudden, he's 7-8-1 on race day. So real hard to get there at this early of the point. But I guess with the steam coming in on Truex, with the excitement, we saw from Hamlin last week how kind of an underwhelming race that was after being awesome at Phoenix, Richmond, and Gateway. Are you interested in any of the JGR stuff at this point of the week?
So just something I'd like to point out to people. I believe the shortest that Kyle Larson, who is the best driver in the sport, has gone off this year at a race was maybe plus 325 at the shortest book. How on the effing planet, universe, whatever different dimension could you even consider betting anybody before seeing them on track at plus 450 when Kyle Larson is sitting there at plus 650? And if he gets anywhere near the front row, his number is dropping shorter than all three of the guys that are currently priced ahead of him. None of those guys in the JGR camp are firing off shorter than 4-1, in my opinion, regardless of what they look like in practice and qualifying. So there's no chance should you be. I'm not betting these guys right now. The only one I would even consider, I believe, in this single-digit range is Larson, knowing what he's capable of unloading like. I did it last week. I grabbed him at 7 on Saturday morning, shortly, a couple hours before we had practice and qualifying. And thank God I did. Forget about the results of the race, but he was quite possibly the best car. And he reopened at 4.5. Like, he's the only guy that's going to see a significant drop if you're already opening at these numbers. And one last point on this. If you're catching this early in the morning on Wednesday, you might as well go take a shot and see if it's still there. But as of recording right now, Bet365 has Martin Truex Jr. listed at a fat-fingered price of 14-1.
Yeah, there's no chance that that's still available Wednesday when this is out. But
yeah, now that I'm no longer on my soapbox, I'm lobbing a softball up for you. Here you go.
So I want to talk about Larson because I was, Hendrick has been awesome. We just saw how good they all were last week, right? Larson was great until he crashed out. Byron was top 3. Elliott was top 3. Bowman had a top 10 day after starting 33rd.
Yep, and he probably would have been in the top. We probably would have had all 4 Hendrick cars up front.
But at New Hampshire, for some reason, despite being shorter, flatter, outside of really Kyle Larson, and even his kind of results have been around up and down, there hasn't been a lot of success. And it's been like, I was like, oh, Byron makes sense. I had fun watching him last week. He's somebody that's always priced a little bit longer than he should be, but he's never finished inside the top 10 here. I think I went to the well with him last year after, at this race, but and he's had some borderline top 10 finishes. 14, 12, 11, 21, 11, 24 is his last 6 results. After stage 2, he's been in the top 10 3 times, including a 4th and a 5th in 2019, 2020. Like I said, he's been really fast at shorter, flatter. He was, second fastest car on the track at Iowa. He's been, 8th at Phoenix, 9th at Richmond. I don't know what to do. I don't know if I should take the candy that the book is giving us, giving what we've seen of late, or if they're setting us up and they're going to pull the football away as we run up to kick it, because they're all going to finish out of the top 10 except for maybe Larson.
Yeah, look, regardless of what the results say in the past, Kyle Larson opening at anything longer than 5 at this point, I think is a gift to people, because if he unloads fast, he's popping off as the favorite post practice and qualifying. I just think that's the expectation in the sport now. He is the Max Verstappen of the NASCAR Cup Series because when he looks good, he looks drastically better than everybody else. And at the moment, the only guy that has seemed to be able to even keep pace with him is Christopher Bell. But, for as many problems as Kyle Larson has had throughout the year, because he's kind of become checkers of records too, Christopher Bell is like twofold that type of driver, and he can never seem to avoid issues either. So I would much rather bet the longer number of Kyle Larson, no matter the history here, and then hope that he unloads fast and wait to see what Bell has, because he's probably dropping to 4-1, not 4.5. I just don't see a world where you're not still getting a similar number on Bell, unless he's like 2 seconds faster than everybody else, which is not happening in today's sport.
Yeah, I added the Larson. He's probably going to be 14-1 when we talk again on Saturday, but that's okay.
We had this same conversation before Iowa.
Yeah. And we had the same conversation before whatever that race was, and then Larson sucked in practice, and then he was 14, and I'm like, oh, shit. And then I added it again, and then he did win.
But I think that's a good gamble on Larson, though, because you know what he's capable of.
And more often than not, it's probably going to get shorter or remain around the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Just a reminder, Brian, we'll be in New Hampshire. We will record Saturday as usual. Quality might not be quite as good on Brian's end, but we will definitely get stuff out to you. We'll try also get the newsletter out as well. Hopefully Brian we can record from the track or something. We'll figure something out. So
I'm going to try to do it shortly after qualifying, in between the Xfinity race. We'll see.
Do you have any, have any interest in going back to Blaney, who was good at Phoenix, who was fast?
Not at 6.5. I don't even have to let you, there's like, no. The only, even 7? At 7, I have zero interest in that. The only guy that anybody should be betting at these numbers pre-practice and qualifying at this time
is Joey Logano.
Is Kyle Larson. And then I'm so glad you brought up his Penske teammate. Look, I'm still sweating a damn Joey Logano over 1.5 win total. So obviously I'll be more than happy if he can start racking them off. But how do you bet a guy that hasn't won in ages at 8.5, regardless of what he's been like at this track type? Coming off of a race where he reopened at 8-1, and he was barely a top 10 car. Like he wasn't great in Iowa. Yeah. Like, why is he going off at $4.50 shorter or $6 shorter than freaking William Byron and $8 shorter than Chase Elliott, who's been the most consistent driver in the sport this year?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
None. It's just because of what we saw last week. It's all based on that.
Yeah, believe me. Like right now, obviously, like we'll look at it after we go through the outrights. But if I can fade Joey Logano because of his current outright price right now, I'm looking to fade him in matchups early in the week.
And then he'll be down here in like the 14-1 range post. Let's talk the longer than 10-1, inside 20-1. So we have Byron as long as 14. I think you can find maybe a little bit longer, but I'm pretty sure 14 is the best. Elliott at 16, Keselowski at 18. And then Gibbs is like all over the board. Gibbs is 16 here. He's 20 at Superbook. Interesting range. A couple Hendrick guys that I'm compelled to get to, but like also don't think I don't know if they're gonna win. Elliott might be just another top 5 bet again for me and just cash it and walk away. And I'm interested in Keselowski, who's been good. Maybe not a winner. I don't know. What do you make of this range?
So Keselowski was a little bit disappointing last week in Iowa, but that said, I don't think you can take too much away from what we saw at Iowa Speedway in terms of trying to prognosticate what's going to happen here on the similar style track of shorter, flatter, because of the repave. You had a lot of uncertainty with the setup, how the tires were going to act and all that jargon. So, I'm going to go back to the traditional shorter flats that we've had on the year. And, Chase Elliott and Brad Keselowski, I don't think there's really been two other drivers that have been as consistent as those guys have been on these tracks in terms of maintaining track position, getting good finishes. Like they're probably my two favorite outrights right now. Obviously, I will admit I'm betting Tyler Reddick at 20-1. I don't really care. He can continue to hurt me, stab me in the heart every single week. But It's going to unload fast. And I think the same can be said for Chase Elliott and probably Brad Keselowski. They're going to look decent in practice. They're going to look fine in qualifying. These numbers will be shorter probably come, Saturday or whatever after qualifying. So I'm willing to bet these now and take the risk later.
Yeah. I think if you really believe in some of these guys, because there's a bunch of compelling cases, the Hendrick guys, Keselowski, even Tyler Reddick, as Brian will continue to do to himself. I'm not really sure why. What about our FK teammate Chris Buescher? We talked about this is kind of a place where this is kind of a part of the calendar where he got really hot last year. Obviously, we talked about kind of how they luck box their results in Phoenix, but is this a place where maybe a 30-1 Buescher is all of a sudden 12-1 on race day, and we're really happy to have that ticket in our pocket?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I definitely think New Hampshire is more of a track where if you haven't historically been able to at least pop a couple of times here, I'm not too sure that it's really just going to show up.
Yeah.
At this time. And Buescher's not a guy who's ran well historically at New Hampshire. So he's probably not somebody I'm willing to get to. I'd rather see him practice well. And then, the shortest I can envision him going is maybe 12. If he looks really good, he qualifies on the front couple rows, which isn't necessarily their strong suit either out of the RFK camp. So he's somebody that I'm interested in, but I'm willing to wait to see what they look like.
All right, let's talk about longer than kind of the longer range. So we have Josh Berry at 30. SHR at shorter flatter is always a compelling candidate. Ross Chastain, Kyle Busch. I want to find that tweet because our fantasy race was talking about Kyle Busch and like his results or lack thereof here. It's been kind of a mess. So.
Yeah.
2023, he was 36, started in the back, crashed on lap 70 when he was 27th. In 2022, he finished 12th, spun twice. 2021, he started on the pole, crashed while leading in the rain. 2020, 38th. So, good luck getting to him. If you want to convince yourself that he's due, and whatever, but sure seems like he's snake bit at this track.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think Kyle Busch is a guy who you're just betting now because you're betting against, or you're betting for the regression to the mean, essentially. How many more races can this guy suffer horrible instances of car failures, wrecks by somebody else's, or his own damn stupid decision making? I think that's what you wind up doing, and that's more of a gamble than it is an educated bet. I don't expect him to do well here. I mean, since leaving Toyota, his consistency has been all over the map. So
yeah. Anybody else you want to take a shot on? Briscoe's
Bubba Wallace 50-1. I think he's very intriguing. I know that they haven't necessarily shown race winning speed at tracks outside of super speedways or even the short tracks, which Bubba has been better on than at 1.5s. And again, going back to last week, I'm not really looking at Iowa at all for, trying to see who I think is going to be good here. And then when you go back to the other shorter flats, Bubba's shown good speed. He's been good here the last 2 trips. He's top 10s in both of those occasions. Last year we cashed a top 10 with him. He's probably going to look fast in practice and qualifying, as has become the norm, and this is probably 30-1 at its longest spot after practice and qualifying. So I don't mind throwing a dart on a guy like that.
Yeah, I don't hate that.
I mean, I don't really realistically think it's going to happen. There's just too many guys at the top that are so strong in this track.
Yeah, and I kind of wish we're able to basically cash out if the number being able to play the market and basically now he's 14, you can cash out and get your discount and then call it a day.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. So speaking on that real quick, I think Michael McDowell at 300-1 or whatever the hell that is. I've been doing this all year with him. He's been really good at qualifying, no matter where we go.
And how many wins does he have? Well, I guess he has
Who
4.
cares? Like again, like I want the long because that's not even that bet doesn't make a dent in your weekly allocated funds for a
Yeah.
race, essentially.
What about Richard Stenhouse? You can get him at
Hell no.
400.
At that point, you really are just donating.
It really is wild to me how like some of these numbers, it's just they have no shot. No shot.
Yeah. Well, when
All
you
right.
get into like the more driver centric tracks,
Yeah.
like it's much easier to narrow down the field of potential race winners.
All right. So Brian's going back to the well. He's doing Tyler Reddick at 20. He's doing Keselowski at 18 and Chase Elliott at 16. I'm just Kyle Larson at this point. I'll probably add another outright or two before the green flag on Sunday, but for now, I will just have my Larson exposure and call it a day. What should we look? Let's see. Do we have other fun stuff? Do we have? Okay, we have some good stuff. So let's see what we got. Maybe we do. Maybe we don't. Maybe it's Maybelline. Let's see here.
Oh man.
Manufacturer. Okay.
Ooh, we do have
We
manufacturer.
have some stuff. Let's see. Larson plus 140, Byron 320. Chevy, this is a bad track for Chevy. There might be an opportunity. I don't know how we would do it. I mean, Chastain, KFB. I don't know. I want no part of this market.
Yeah, I think it's too short this early in the week. But I do think though if they unload and say they are mid, I think this is a market to consider coming back to with a guy like Larson.
Yeah. What about Ford? We don't like Logano. We're unsure about what Blaney will be back to back. Is there
I
a
did
value?
last week. The Keselowski 5-1. I'd love that.
Yeah. I think Barry at 8 is fine. I think Buescher at 9 is interesting. Briscoe at 28. Briscoe, the last 3 years at New Hampshire,
You're gonna
27th,
threaten me with a good time?
15th, 10th. He's moving forward.
28-1.
I mean, I like betting real losers. You like betting Reddick and thinking he's good. I like betting real losers.
Oh, hold on. Okay, all right. Even going further down that list there, Todd Gilliland.
I don't hate it.
Let me just.
I don't hate it.
Look, he's not good. He only has 2
What's
top
Dustin
10s on the
Haley?
season.
Feels like a stretch. Top 10, maybe.
Yeah, but at that point, you might as well just bet his damn top 4 too. Because what if?
Yeah, what if?
Penske, the Penske guys suffer the JGR blown engine thing?
Yeah, and what if 7th is good enough? And he
exactly. Okay, so going back to Gilly, he had a 17th at Phoenix after starting 29th. He did lead 14 laps that race. He qualified 6th at Richmond. He didn't finish very well. He finished 21st. And then Gateway, he started 35th, finished 16th. And then at Iowa, he started 14th and finished 12th. So, I mean, if he can even contend for a top 10, like, what if some wonky shit happens at the end and he just has track position and you're sitting on 125-1?
Feels good. Feels good. You want to hear
Man, I
something?
might just shotgun here with Haley and Gilliland and just
Put a
pray
tenth
that
of a
they're able
unit
to.
on there. What's it going to cost you? Nothing. Drop in the
Yeah.
bucket and maybe you hit a big number. You want to hear something bananas?
Uh-oh.
Martin Truex at New Hampshire over the last 3 races has led 426 laps. You want to take a guess at who is in second and what their laps led is?
Joey Logano?
Right idea, wrong driver.
Austin Cindric?
No.
Is Brad Keselowski?
You're one more guess.
Kyle Busch?
Kevin Harvick.
Oh my gosh.
Guess how many laps led he has over the last 3 trips to New Hampshire?
Harvick?
Yeah. And I told you, Truex is 426.
Is it less than 100?
It's less than 100.
Oh my god.
76. And then it's Chase Elliott with 66. Like Martin Truex, 404 times, over 4 times as many laps led as Harvick, Elliott, Blaney, Keselowski, Chris Bell. Like you have to get like, I don't know, like 8 of these drivers to get as many laps led as what Martin Truex has.
Well, I'm just looking back on, so I just opened up Truex's history here. So if you completely ignore 2019 and 2020, where he didn't lead a single lap in any of those 3 races, he did finish 3rd and 4th in 2 of those 3, though. Prior to that, he had 5 straight New Hampshire appearances where he led 83 or more laps, and then has capped it off in the next gen era, leading 172 and 254. And he's started on the front row 3 consecutive Loudon trips.
I'm not betting Truex at 5-1, but I am betting him at plus 220 to top Toyota.
I was just going to say, I feel like hitting his top Toyota is going to be way better.
Yeah,
because even if you go to his top 3 finish, he's only plus 135.
Yeah. And obviously it could be Toyota, and he could still top 3, but I will take the plus 220 now, and if he looks like a rocket ship, maybe I come back with a top 3 or a top 5.
Yeah, I'm gonna ride along with you on that. I mean, this is essentially Truex's home track as well because he's from the New England area. He's always liked having that massive lobster, the massive lobster.
Lobster. Although
can't
like
stand
Martinsville has to be Martin's home track. Like I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So Superbook, when you go to their matchups, Truex is like heavily steamed against the 2 Penske guys. He's minus 125 against Blaney and minus 150 over Logano right now. So that just tells you what the expectation is in terms of Toyota bringing that type of speed. So I think you definitely hit that market top Toyota and just call it a day.
Yeah. And then you come back and hit, after practice and qualifying or something if you want more exposure.
Yeah. What was that price? 220?
220. I don't think anywhere else has that right now, so. And he's plus 150 over on Superbook to top 3.
I mean, I guess
Martin Truex plus 105 versus Christopher Bell.
The thing though is Christopher Bell is probably going to qualify better. That's just the assumption. I mean, because he's been, I'd say the last like 3 or 4 races, the 1B to Kyle Larson's 1A in terms of speed.
Yeah.
Or maybe even 1A. So.
Yeah, he should have won Sonoma. Ooh. I am taking Kyle Larson plus 115 against Ryan Blaneys.
Like I said.
And then maybe I'll come back and hit it again once Larson qualifies on front row again.
Yeah.
I'm taking him against Logano too.
Fucking Logano's gonna win. Watch.
You know what? We don't need that kind of negative Nancy attitude around here, Brian Twining.
Oh man. Leave it to Joey. Just leave it to Joey.
Or Larson will be the best car and he'll get wrecked again. That'll probably be what happens.
Yeah, probably by Ross Chastain for
Chase plus 110 against Brad K is kind of interesting. Although Brad is like, he seems so solid. Like it's hard to fade him in matchups.
That's because he just does enough to.
And he's fine grabbing track position, just sticking it.
Exactly. That's why I was having a fun debate with Ryan over at whentherace.info about Brad K and Chris Buescher being in the DFS optimal lineups, likely about how like their strategy of banking for the lucky caution seems to almost always work out for them.
All right, we haven't had a show bet in a couple weeks. I think I found one.
Reddick over Barry?
Barry over Reddick.
Yeah, Reddick over Barry.
Right, Barry over Reddick.
All right, I'll lay the juice too.
Yeah.
You can take the plus 110.
Damn right I will.
And then when we come back on Saturday night and we record after Tyler Reddick qualifies 6th and Josh Berry is 18th and this number is floated out to minus 180,
I'll double down and take it again. Because Tyler Reddick will do something stupid and finish 22nd.
Oh, man.
Why do we like guys that just do the dumbest stuff?
I don't know, man. I mean, somebody tweeted about it on Sunday morning too. Like there was no chance that Reddick was going to drive good in that stupid Hamburglar paint scheme and fire suit he had to wear.
Yeah, he looked like a little kid who was going to the track on Halloween, and I was like, this is not a good look.
Yeah, and then even Kevin Harvick went in on him by like saying, "Thank God I've been sponsored by beer companies most of my life."
Yeah, he looked like he was wearing like onesie pajamas.
Yeah,
and I was like, "Come on, man, you gotta do better than that." Okay. Anything else? Caesars only has three bets or three matchups.
Ooh.
Ooh, what's ooh?
I'm doing it again. I don't care. Brad Keselowski over Ty Gibbs. Thank you, and good night. Give me the old fart veteran to outlast the young kid.
This is interesting. Drivers not completing 150 laps. The over 2.5 is plus 130. Can we get 3 cars to not complete 150 laps?
I don't know.
Seems unlikely.
Yeah, like I don't think we're gonna have tire failures.
Tyler wear? It's called Tyler wear. It's been renamed.
Here, let me go back. 150 laps, right?
Yeah.
Let's see here. Over the last 3 trips here, or last 4, sorry, pardon me. Oh, well. It happened the first year of the next gen car. We had 4 cars complete 5 or fewer laps and 1 other car complete just 88. But then that was those are the only 4 that wrecked. And then last year there was only 2.
Yeah. Interesting.
I would smash the under. I think that's juiced properly because I think drivers have become a little bit better at familiar tracks that they don't think, well, now that I say that, if track position is as key as we've seen at these shorter tracks, that might change. We might see more Kyle Larsonings.
You mean Daniel Suarezings?
Oh man, we could have this argument all day.
All right, Brian Twining, it was good to be back. You know what we should do? Let me see if we haven't looked at this in a couple weeks. Let's pull this up just to see if there's any potential value.
We going
championship odds. Larson plus 350, Hamlin 450, Byron 5, Bell at 7, Elliott at 10, Blaney at 10, Reddick at 12, Truex at 14. Anything you want to get in on? I'm going to go over to Caesars and see what they're see if they have anything better. Elliott at 10 is interesting to me. Blaney at 10 is interesting to me. Just that if he gets to Phoenix, I trust him.
Yeah.
Truex is 14. We like his speed. We think he can be good. And he's been good on shorter flatter. Should we be adding Truex at 14?
I don't know if you just don't write it out and bet him like
Race by
race.
race.
Yeah, just because of the format of this, and say if somebody Chastains the wall again and knocks Truex out on the last lap, kind of like what happened to Denny. I mean, imagine if you had been sitting on a Denny Hamlin championship future when Chastain did the Hail Melon, like
Sure.
how pissed you would have been.
Yeah. That was a one-time thing.
Yeah.
Anyone here? Bell? I added some Bell. I think at 8-1. I don't mind 7. I think he's going to be for 2 or 3 to 1 when we get to Phoenix. So I don't mind grabbing some of that. I like Elliott at
10. One of my biggest reservations, though, is what we saw out of Ryan Blaneys' numbers last year. After the first race, I believe, in like the second round or the first round, whatever it was, his championship future floated out to like 36 or I don't remember what it was.
There was 40s, but I thought it was before the playoffs. Was it during the playoffs?
Yeah, no, I think it was after the first race of the playoffs because he wrecked. I think it was Daytona or something. I forget what, or it wasn't Daytona. Maybe it's Talladega. But yeah, his number floated, and I mean, damn, imagine.
Yeah, people cash those too.
To suck the first race of the playoffs, and you're going to get a much bigger number.
No. All right. It's good to catch up. Good to chat some Iowa. Let us know down in the comments. What'd you think of the Iowa race? Did you have fun? Would you want, NASCAR to make it a permanent fixture of the schedule, maybe once a year instead of Richmond or Gateway or something? Let us know if there's anybody jumping out to you right now as early values. So when you're wanting to get a piece of before things drop, I will recap the card just to remind people where we are sitting. I have Kyle Larson at 7. I have Briscoe at 28-1 as the top 4 because I'm an idiot. Truex top Toyota plus 220. Larson over Blaney, Larson over Logano, and Josh Berry over Tyler Reddick at plus 110. Suck it, Brian. Brian has Reddick, Keselowski, Elliott at 20, 18, and 16 respectively. He has the Gilly Gang at top 4 at 125. Justin Haley top 4 at 125. He joined me on the Truex top Toyota. He took Reddick over Barry because he likes to lose money, and Keselowski over Gibbs at minus 115. I will be adding a Chase Elliott top 5 as soon as those odds drop. Unfortunately, as we're recording, it's not available, but that will be going on the card as well. Brian, anyone else you're considering either from outright perspective or you're looking at placings once more become available?
Obviously, I'm going to repeat this because this number will not be there when you see this, but almost 45 minutes later, Martin Truex Jr. is still 14-1 at Bet365. So make sure you check that just in case that number has not been moved. If I had access to this, I would be betting a lot right now. But yeah, I like Chase Elliott just like you a lot. I like his placements this week. Top 5 market. I think top 3 market is really interesting. But I want to wait like in the Chevy market to see what we get because Chevy has not necessarily performed all that well here.
Yeah, and I think if Larson comes out and looks awesome in qualifying, I might look at Chase Elliott for top Chevy as well. That's Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. He'll be live from New Hampshire when we talk again on Saturday. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll talk to you next time.